Dad broke our 4-year deal about Tokyo, now wants me to pay for family vacation instead, so this is going to be long. But I need outside perspective because my family thinks I'm being completely unreasonable, and I'm starting to question my own sanity. 4 years ago, when I was 18 and about to start college, my dad made me a deal. I was obsessed with Japanese gaming culture had been since I was like 13 when I discovered some indie Japanese developers and fell down this whole rabbit hole of gaming history, Nintendo's origins, the arcade scene in Tokyo. My dad thought it was all weeb nonsense, but I was dead serious about wanting to visit Japan someday. So when I was stressing about college costs and whether I'd be able to afford anything fun during my 4 years, Dad sat me down and made what seemed like a really generous offer. The deal was this: maintain a 3.5 GPA or higher through all 4 years, work part-time throughout college, save up $4,000 by graduation, and he'd pay for me and one friend to spend spring break of my senior year in Tokyo. We're talking flights, hotel, the works. He estimated it would cost him about $8,000 total, which seemed like a huge investment from a guy who clips coupons and complains about the price of everything. I thought I'd unlocked some kind of parental achievement. Finally, my dad was taking my interests seriously and rewarding hard work with something I actually cared about. So I busted my ass. Not just met his requirements, exceeded them. I'm graduating in May with a 3.8 GPA, double major in computer science and business. I've worked at the campus IT help desk for 3 years and picked up weekend shifts at Best Buy since sophomore year. Instead of the required $4,000, I've saved $6,000. My friend Marcus, my roommate who I was planning to take, has been saving up his spending money for 2 years. We've been planning this trip since January. Looking at hostels in Shibuya, mapping out which gaming cafes to visit, figuring out the train system. I've been learning basic Japanese for the past year. This wasn't some casual spring break thing, this was the thing I'd been working toward. 2 weeks ago, Dad asked to talk. He sat me down in his office, the formal setting that means you're about to get bad news. He looked uncomfortable, which should have been my first red flag. Son, I've been thinking about this Tokyo trip, and I think we need to adjust our expectations. I asked what he meant by adjust. Well, I've been looking at the real costs, and Tokyo is it's unrealistic. We're talking $12,000 minimum when you factor in food, activities, everything. That's money we could put toward your student loans or a down payment on a car. I reminded him that I'd held up my end of the deal, actually exceeded it. I know you have, and I'm proud of you, but you're 22 now, not 18. You understand how money works better. I think you'll appreciate what I'm proposing instead. Here's where it gets good. Dad had an alternative, a week-long family road trip to Yellowstone National Park over spring break. All 4 of us, me, him, Mom, and my 16-year-old brother Tyler. Educational, American, affordable. Here's the thing though, he said, and I swear I felt something cold settle in my stomach. The trip will cost about $3,500 total. I'm hoping you can contribute your savings toward it. As the oldest son, helping provide for a family experience. I stared at him for a solid minute. You want me to pay for the family vacation with money I saved for the trip you promised me? It's not that black and white, Jake. Most kids don't get any vacation at all. We're offering you a chance to see some of America's most beautiful landscapes. I asked him when he'd decided this, when he'd stopped planning to honor our original agreement. There was never a definite timeline. We said we'd see how things looked when you graduated. That's when I knew. We never said any such thing. Our deal was specific: maintain grades, work, save money, and I'd get Tokyo spring break senior year. There was no "we'll see how things look" clause. I told him I needed time to think about it. That was 2 weeks ago, and the pressure has been mounting daily. Mom keeps talking about what a nice family bonding experience Yellowstone would be. Tyler's excited because he's never been to a national park. Dad keeps mentioning practical things like how this trip would be educational and help me appreciate America first. But here's what's really bothering me. I don't think this is about money. Dad makes decent money as an insurance adjuster, and Mom works full-time as a teacher. They're not struggling. This feels like he never intended to honor the deal and was hoping I'd just go along with the bait and switch. Marcus thinks I should take a stand, but he's from divorced parents who competed with elaborate trips, so his perspective might be skewed. My gut says I earned this Tokyo trip fair and square, but my family is making me feel like I'm being selfish and ungrateful. Am I crazy for wanting him to stick to our original agreement? Or should I just take the family vacation and let this go? Update 1. I talked to my mom yesterday, and holy shit, you guys were right about everything. I've been going back and forth on this for days, reading all your comments, trying to figure out if I was being unreasonable. Part of me kept thinking maybe Dad really was just trying to be practical. Maybe Tokyo was genuinely too expensive. Maybe I should just be grateful for any family vacation. Then I had coffee with Mom yesterday at her school. She had a prep period, and I don't have classes on Wednesdays. I thought maybe she could help me understand Dad's perspective, give me the full picture of their finances, something. I explained how confused I was about the sudden change, how I'd worked for 4 years toward this specific goal. I wasn't accusing Dad of anything, just trying to understand the shift. That's when she said something that made my blood go cold. Well, your father's been planning the Yellowstone trip since November. He already put down a deposit on the vacation rental. I just stared at her. November, but he didn't tell me Tokyo was off the table until 2 weeks ago. She got this look on her face like she'd just realized she'd said something wrong. Oh, I thought you two had already talked about changing the plan. November. He'd been planning to break our deal for 4 months and just let me keep planning Tokyo, keep saving money, keep getting excited about something he'd already decided wasn't happening. But it gets worse. I asked Mom about the budget for Yellowstone, how much it was really going to cost. She started listing expenses: the rental, food, gas, activities for Tyler. When she finished, I added it up. Even being generous with estimates, the trip would cost around $2,800, but Dad said he needed me to contribute my $6,000 savings because the trip was $3,500. Mom looked genuinely confused. Honey, I don't think it's quite that much. Why would he need your full savings? So I asked the question I should have asked 2 weeks ago. How much does Dad expect me to contribute? Well, we thought maybe you could cover your brother's expenses and some of the food costs. You know, since you're the one with savings and Tyler doesn't have a job yet. Let me break this down. Dad wanted me to use the money I saved for Tokyo to subsidize Tyler's vacation. Not just my own portion, my 16-year-old brother's portion too, and probably some of their expenses while we're at it. When I explained this to Mom, she got defensive. Started talking about family helping family, how Tyler looked up to me, how disappointed he'd be if we couldn't afford to take him. But Mom, this was supposed to be my reward for 4 years of work. Now you want me to pay for everyone else's vacation instead. It's not like that, Jake. It's just, your father thought you'd understand. You're an adult now, you should want to contribute to family experiences. I asked her point blank, did Dad ever intend to honor the Tokyo deal? She was quiet for a long time. Then, your father always thought you'd outgrow the Japan thing. He hoped college would broaden your interests. There it is. Dad made me a deal he never intended to keep, hoping I'd lose interest in gaming and Japanese culture over 4 years of college. When that didn't happen, he moved the goalposts and expected me to subsidize a family vacation instead. I told Mom I needed time to process this. She begged me not to make this a big deal and to think about the family. She reminded me that Tyler had been looking forward to a spring vacation and had already told his friends we were doing something fun. What about what I've been looking forward to for 4 years? You can go to Japan anytime, honey. Family time is precious. I left that conversation feeling like I was taking crazy pills. Tyler's potential disappointment matters more than my actual disappointment. Dad's financial convenience matters more than his word. Family harmony matters more than honoring commitments. Marcus has been amazing through this whole thing. He pointed out that if Dad had been honest from the beginning, hey, instead of Tokyo, what if we did a family trip and I helped with costs? That would have been a completely different conversation. The manipulation is in making me feel selfish for wanting him to keep a promise he never intended to honor. I'm really leaning toward booking my own Tokyo trip now. I have the money, I'm 22 years old and I've earned this. But I know it'll blow up the whole family dynamic. Part of me feels guilty for even considering it. Tyler really is excited about Yellowstone, and it's not his fault our parents are being manipulative. Mom genuinely seems to think I should prioritize family bonding over personal goals. But another part of me, the part that spent 4 years working 2 jobs and maintaining honor roll knows I've earned this trip fair and square. I'm going to sleep on it one more night, but I think I already know what I'm going to do. Edit. The support in these comments is incredible. I've been feeling gaslit by my family for weeks, and you guys are helping me see that I'm not crazy for wanting people to keep their word. Edit 2. Someone asked about my relationship with Tyler. He's a good kid, just young and excited about any family trip. This isn't his fault, and I don't want him to suffer for our parents' manipulation. But I also can't light myself on fire to keep him warm, you know? Edit 3. For those asking, yes, I have the original text about the Tokyo deal saved. Dad can't claim we misunderstood because everything was spelled out clearly when I was 18. Update 2. I confronted my dad last night. It did not go the way I expected. I'd planned out what I wanted to say, practiced it with Marcus, tried to stay calm and factual. I was going to present the evidence, the texts, the timeline, Mom's admission that he'd been planning Yellowstone since November. I thought if I could just get him to acknowledge the manipulation, maybe we could work something out. I was so naive. I asked Dad to sit down because we needed to talk about the trip situation. I started by showing him our old text exchange from freshman year where he laid out the Tokyo deal in detail. Dad, this says you'll pay for Tokyo if I maintain my GPA, work part-time, and save $4,000. I've done all that and more. He barely glanced at his phone. Jake, you're 22 now, not 18. You understand that situations change, costs change. I thought you'd be mature enough to see the bigger picture. I told him Mom had mentioned he'd been planning Yellowstone since November, months before he told me Tokyo was off the table. That's when his whole demeanor shifted. He got this look I recognized from childhood, the "you're questioning my authority" face. Your mother misunderstood the timeline. But yes, I've been researching alternatives because I realized early on that Tokyo wasn't practical. When did you realize that? Because you never mentioned any concerns until 2 weeks ago. I don't owe you a detailed explanation of my decision-making process. I'm your father, and I made a judgment call about what's best for this family. I stayed calm and asked the question I really needed answered. Why did you make me a promise you never intended to keep? His answer revealed everything. Jake, I hoped that 4 years of college would help you develop more mature interests. The whole Japan thing, the gaming obsession, I thought you'd outgrow it. I thought by senior year you'd appreciate something more substantial, more American. More American? Yes, Yellowstone is one of our national treasures. Japan is just, it's cartoon culture, Jake. It's not real culture. I was hoping college would broaden your perspective beyond fantasy nonsense. I felt something cold settle in my chest. This wasn't about money. This was about my dad fundamentally dismissing everything I cared about and assuming he could manipulate me into caring about what he thought I should care about. So you lied to me for 4 years. I didn't lie. I made a conditional promise and the conditions changed. What conditions changed? I exceeded every requirement you set. The condition that you'd grow up. That's when I realized there was no point in continuing this conversation. Dad didn't see me as an adult with my own interests and goals. He saw me as a project he could shape by manipulating incentives. I told him I'd made a decision. I was taking my $6,000 and booking my own trip to Tokyo over spring break. Solo. The explosion was immediate. You're being incredibly selfish and ungrateful. Do you have any idea how many kids would love a family vacation to Yellowstone? Then take one of those kids. Our deal was for Tokyo. You're prioritizing cartoon culture over your own family. I'm prioritizing promises over manipulation. Then came the guilt trip artillery. How disappointed Tyler would be. How this would ruin the family vacation because they couldn't afford it without my contribution. How I was being spoiled and entitled. How my mom had been looking forward to family bonding time. So you've been counting on my money this whole time. We've been counting on your maturity and family loyalty. I told him that loyalty works both ways, and a father who keeps his promises earns more respect than one who moves goalposts. He tried one last manipulation. Fine, go to Japan, waste your money on childish fantasy, but don't come crying to me when you realize you chose anime over your real family. I'm choosing honesty over manipulation. There's a difference. I walked out of that conversation feeling something I'd never felt before with my dad completely done. Not angry, not hurt, just finished. Like I'd finally seen him clearly for the first time. Marcus helped me book everything last night. 8 days in Tokyo, flying out March 15th. Staying in hostels in Shibuya and Akihabara, planned around all the places I've wanted to visit since I was 16. Nintendo headquarters, the arcade scene, the Pokémon Center, real ramen shops. I'm not doing this to hurt my family. I'm doing this because I earned it, and I'm tired of being manipulated out of things I work for. Tyler texted me this morning asking if I was really not coming to Yellowstone. I told him I loved him, but Dad and I had a deal that he broke, and I couldn't let that slide. He didn't understand, but he's 16. I don't expect him to get the principle at stake here. Mom called crying, asking me to reconsider, saying I was tearing the family apart over a vacation. I told her Dad tore the family apart when he decided his word didn't matter. I fly out in 6 days. I've never been more excited and more nervous about anything in my life. Edit. The solidarity in these comments is keeping me sane. You guys get it, this isn't about the destination, it's about the principle. Edit 2. Someone asked if I feel bad about Tyler missing out on a vacation. I do feel bad for him, but that's Dad's consequence to manage, not mine. He chose to make promises he couldn't keep. Edit 3. Yes, I'm going alone. Marcus couldn't afford to match my savings timeline, and honestly, after all this drama, I think a solo trip is exactly what I need. Final update: I'm writing this from a cafe in Shibuya at 6 a.m. Tokyo time, and I need to tell you guys how everything played out. First off, this trip has been everything I hoped for and more. I've been here 6 days, and it's like finally understanding a language I've been trying to learn my whole life. The gaming culture, the attention to detail in everything, the way technology integrates into daily life, it's all clicking in ways I never expected. But the real story is what happened with my family. The day before I left, Dad made one last attempt to guilt me into staying. He called me into his office, same power play setting as before, and laid out the consequences. I hope you understand that if you go through with this, you're choosing to be selfish. Tyler won't get his vacation, your mother is heartbroken, and you'll be proving that your fantasy interests matter more than your real family. I told him I was proving that a person's word should matter, and that making promises you don't intend to keep is a form of stealing. I'm your father, you don't get to lecture me about stealing. You stole 4 years of honest effort by lying about the reward. That's when he played his final card. Fine, go, but don't expect any financial help with graduate school, a wedding, buying a house, any of it. You're choosing independence, so be independent. The threat was supposed to scare me, but it actually felt like freedom. Finally, no more conditional promises, no more goalposts that could move whenever convenient, just clear expectations. I told him that sounded fair. I'd rather earn everything myself than wonder when the next manipulation was coming. He looked genuinely shocked that his ultimatum didn't work. I flew out the next morning. Marcus drove me to the airport at 5 a.m. and told me he was proud of me for sticking to my principles. Most people cave to family pressure, he said. You're showing them that your word actually means something. The flight was the longest 14 hours of my life, but stepping off the plane at Narita felt like I'd finally made it to the place I was supposed to be. Here's what I didn't expect. Halfway through my trip, the family dynamics back home started falling apart without me there to blame. Tyler figured out that the vacation was canceled because Dad had been counting on my money, not because I was being selfish. He started asking uncomfortable questions about why Dad had made me a promise he didn't plan to keep. Mom realized that Dad had been lying to her too about the costs, about the timeline, about his intentions. She genuinely believed this was a mutual family decision, not a unilateral manipulation. Extended family started taking sides. My Aunt Dad's sister called him out publicly at a family dinner for breaking promises to kids. My Grandpa Dad's dad apparently said some things about how a man's word is his bond. 3 days ago, Dad called me, not to apologize but to tell me that I'd gotten what I wanted and torn the family apart. I told him I didn't tear anything apart, I just refused to be manipulated, and that exposed problems that were already there. Your mother barely speaks to me. Tyler thinks I'm a liar. The rest of the family is treating me like I'm some kind of villain. Maybe because you acted like one. I was trying to teach you about disappointment and practical thinking. You taught me not to trust promises from you. Mission accomplished. That was our last conversation. I blocked his number after that. But here's the thing, I'm not bitter about any of this anymore. Being here, doing something I worked 4 years for, has shown me what keeping promises to yourself feels like. Every morning, I wake up in a country I've wanted to visit since I was 13, and I remember that I made this happen through my own effort and commitment. I've visited the Nintendo headquarters, they give incredible tour. I've spent entire days in arcade complexes in Akihabara. I've eaten more authentic ramen than I knew existed. I've practiced my terrible Japanese with patient locals who appreciate the effort. Most importantly, I've learned what it feels like to follow through on your own goals without waiting for permission or validation from people who don't respect what you care about. Yesterday, Dad texted asking if I'd help pay for Tyler's summer camp. I sent him a photo of Mount Fuji with the caption, "Sorry, too busy being ungrateful in Japan." Tyler and I have been texting throughout the trip. He apologized for not understanding why I couldn't just go along with the family vacation. He said watching Dad's manipulation fall apart when I wasn't there to absorb it helped him see what was really going on. "I get why you left now," he texted yesterday. "Dad's been promising me stuff and then changing the rules my whole life. I just never noticed because you always went along with it." That hit me harder than I expected. I'd been enabling Dad's behavior by consistently caving to guilt trips and accepting moved goalposts. By standing up for myself, I'd accidentally taught Tyler that he didn't have to accept manipulation either. Mom and I are still working things out. She understands now that Dad had been lying to both of us, but she's struggling with the family tension. I told her I love her, but I'm not responsible for managing Dad's relationships with other people. "I just want us all to get along," she said. "I want us all to be honest with each other. Those aren't the same thing." I fly home tomorrow, and honestly, I'm ready. Not to go back to the old family dynamic, but to start building adult relationships based on mutual respect instead of manipulation. The best part of this whole experience isn't the places I've seen or the things I've done. It's the proof that I can trust myself to follow through on commitments, even when people I love are pressuring me to give up. I worked for this trip for 4 years. I earned it. I'm taking it. And sometimes the best revenge against people who don't respect your dreams is just living them anyway. Currently planning my next international trip for after graduation, maybe South Korea for their gaming scene, or back to Japan for the regions I didn't get to see this time. The difference is, next time I won't be waiting for anyone's permission. Edit. This will probably be my last edit. Thank you guys for all the support throughout this whole situation. You helped me see that I wasn't crazy for wanting people to keep their promises. Edit 2. For people asking about my relationship with Dad going forward, I'm not cutting him off completely, but I'm never making financial plans that depend on his promises again. Trust, once broken, has to be rebuilt through consistent actions, not words. Edit 3. Tyler asked if he could visit me in Tokyo someday when he's older. I told him absolutely, but he'll have to earn it himself the same way I did. No shortcuts, no handouts, no promises that can be taken away, just his own work and his own savings. He seemed to understand why that matters. TLDR, Dad broke our 4-year deal about Tokyo, wanted me to fund family vacation instead. I refused and went to Japan solo. Family vacation got canceled, Dad's manipulation exposed, relationships realigned based on honesty instead of guilt trips. Currently eating the best curry udon of my life and planning my next adventure. No regrets.